In this video, we're going to talk about one of our favourite topics, how to contribute to open source projects. At Darragov Research, we specialise in open source hardware, software and education to help you to tackle global issues in your local community. As you can tell, we care a lot about open source, based on our tagline. And we hope that this will be helpful to you whether or not you're just getting started with open source, contributing to any of our projects already, or you're a seasoned veteran with many merge pull requests under your belt. Introduction to open source. Open source is actually quite a big topic, so this video will be split into the following sections. Timestamps will be available in the description and pinned as a favourite comment in the comment section. YouTube now has a feature where you can skip around and view which section is where in the YouTube player timeline, so you can use that too, depending on what device you're watching this on. We recommend watching it from start to finish in order for the first time, and feel free to come back to it later and bounce around to pick out what you need depending on where you are in your journey of contributing to open source work. What is open source? Open source means the product or the project has all the files, diagrams and explanations available to be read, modified and deployed. Why is this important? It's important because arguably it's the backbone of all of the infrastructure that you use every single day. A notable example of open source work is Linux. Linux is the operating system that is used by most of the computers that run the internet. Benefits of open source work. There are many benefits to doing open source work and to starting your own open source projects. Open collaboration. New features can be rolled out iteratively as required either by you or the community you build. Creating a community of users. This is beneficial as they can champion your work in places you don't have access, or they can bring other people to the cause who will do the same. Higher quality contributions. As people will know that their work will be public, they tend to take more care and be more explicit to ensure that their work is understandable and improvable. Ease of onboarding. If you've documented your work correctly, it means that anyone who will be joining your team or wants to get started has access to everything they need to get up and running. With many eyes, all bugs are shallow. This means that the more people who are looking at a problem, the more likely one of them will find a solution to the problem that you're having. Having a diverse set of people working on a problem is important, as solutions in other industries or domains allows you to transfer easy solutions in one domain to a hard problem in another. Important topics to know about in open source. Before getting into the technical details, there are a few key things to know about with open source. License. Open source isn't really considered open source unless it has a license attached to the project, and in general, it should allow for commercial use where possible. Some bits of software like GitHub, where you can share your work, make it explicit where the user can pick from a list of potential licenses. If you're creating your own project, do your own research and pick a license which is suitable to what you want to happen with your work. If you're looking to contribute to a project, you should also take a look at the license, as any contributions you make may also be put under the same conditions. Some important things are attribution, saying who made the project in the beginning, and also for people to share any derivative works, as well as if you wish to allow for commercial use of your project. Contributing guidelines. This is a small file or section explaining what is the best way to help improve the project. These include what are the recommended things to do for new joiners, what the process is for taking improvements if they accept them, and recommendations for the best way to present your ideas or work for it to be incorporated into the main project. Slack, Discord, or Rocket Chat communities. These are the places where you can discuss the topic of the project. Usually, for more live and interactive conversation, the project page is the place where things go to get implemented. Slack, Discord, and Rocket Chat more or less have the same functionality. Another key topic is understanding the difference between Git, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, etc. Git can be considered as the way that you package an item in a box, whereas the latter can be considered as more of the warehouse for many projects. Git, in particular, is a software to help keep track of changes you've made to a project. It was made by Linus Torvalds, who also made the Linux operating system, and Git is one of the most commonly used version control systems in software development, so it is a good skill to have, in particular when working with open source projects. Git can seem scary to new users at the start, but in general, you only need to know a few things for 90% of the things that you'll be doing. And even then, there are some graphical user interface tools that can make it easier for you to get started without having to dive into the command line. Then, there are places where you can host your projects, like GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket. In general, they tend to have similar core features, but they may have different names, as software developers usually have the same problems needing to be solved. You should try them all and see what works best for you, as the other features you may need may be better implemented in one service, or the pricing/feature structure is better in another. In this video, we will focus on GitHub specifically, as it is one of the main ones, and the concepts tend to be transferable to other platforms. Let us know in the comments or on social media if you wish for us to do deep dives on any of them in particular, and depending on the demand, we may release another video in the future doing so. Contributing without needing to be technical. Some people say that you can't contribute to open source projects because they're not technical. But this is a myth, because you can contribute in many other ways. Here are some examples of how you can contribute to support open source projects or open source creators. Following using a GitHub account. People tend to join projects when they see that there is an active interest in the project, or the user that is making it has a wide following. You can support in this manner in a few ways. You can follow the repository itself with different levels depending on how much you want to be notified about it. And you can follow the user if you like their work in general. You'll need an account on the platform which the project is hosted on, for example GitHub, GitLab, etc. They are usually self-service to join, so you shouldn't need to pay and can be set up in less than a minute. Additional features like posting, making improvements, etc. require you to have an account. Be careful, as it may be public and you should be following any community guidelines when doing so. Starring repositories. You can star the repository, this is like a like, to show that you are interested in it or support the work that they have done. To do this, you need to be signed in and click the star icon in the top right hand corner of the page. Reporting bugs. A bug in software is usually a functionality that was not planned by the developers, and bringing it to light can help get the problem solved. This can usually be done in the Issues tab of a repository. Do consider looking at the README, contributing guidelines, or community portal of the project to see what is recommended on how to report it or how to fix it. You should verify that the given bug has not already been reported in the closed issues as well. You can filter by labels, aka tags, and do a search as well in the bar provided. Making feature requests. This can also be done via the Issues tab, and there may already be a template to help guide you. You may not have the skills to make the improvement, but you may inspire someone else to make the feature a reality. You can also support other people's feature requests by saying that you would be interested in using the new feature, or providing guidance on what recommendations you would make. This can all be done via the browser by commenting in the issue. You just need to be signed in. Making pull requests. A pull request is just a request to make any improvements you've made go back into the original project. This means that you're going above and beyond most people by, instead of just noting a problem or a feature that you would like to have, you've actually done the work to make the project that bit better and wish for other people to also be able to access it. We encourage you to take a look at our open source work and have a go at following and liking the repositories that you find most interesting to help guide our work and spread the word about what we're doing. Technical explanations. There tend to be a lot of technical jargon that is thrown about on open source projects, and specifically Git repositories. But don't let that discourage you from taking part or prevent you from starting your own open source projects. Repository. Simply put, it's a folder with files and subfolders that has a certain structure. You can usually view these via the browser and navigate the file structure by clicking the folder or file names, and there are some other tabs and functions also available. Another tool and language that is commonly used in open source work are READMEs and Markdown. README. A README is usually just a small text of Markdown that encourages people to read it, and it usually contains context on the project which will be helpful to use. Markdown. Markdown is just a text which is formed in a way to make things look pretty in an easy way, like handling titles, bullet points, item lists, links, and more. Fork. A fork is just a copy of a repository, which usually is intended to have some changes from the original repository. Push/pull. This just means that you're transferring code from different places. The way to remember which way round it goes is by always being self-centered. If you're taking code from GitHub to your computer, then you are pulling the code. If you're sending code from your computer to the GitHub, then you are pushing the code. Pull request. A pull request is just a request from someone that has made a fork and made some updates to get their work to be reintegrated with the original piece of work. Merging. Merging is done when someone takes a pull request and integrates it back into the original piece of work. Automated tools. For the repositories that expect to get a lot of work, there are tools to help manage the complexities of making many updates in a very rapid fashion. These include things like unit tests, which ensures any code matches the guidelines given and doesn't result in any breaking changes. Issue templates. Very often, there are common things that people put into an issue, so there are templates to be used to help make all requests have the same amount of required information to try and resolve the issue. For example, a bug issue template and a new feature request template. Pull request templates. This is like an issue template, but specifically to help pull requests to be merged. Usually, it contains an overview of what you're trying to fix or improve. Confirmations that you've read the contributing guidelines and that you know that the work that you're doing will have the same license that the project has attached to it. GitHub pages. A GitHub page is a way for people to host a small static website to do with their project or the personal one, which people can use for personal profiles. This facility is actually very strong, as you can use it to promote your work or your project. It also includes a live test environment if you're using generic tools like HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript. If you're strategic about the way that you use it, you can get quite far with very little infrastructure cost. You can also add domain names and things like trackers. For example, we have used it for the virology flashcards to preview the content for people before they download it and get them to join the project. Example project flow. Now that we've covered some of the jargon, we can run through a quick example of how all of these topics work when contributing to open source. First, find an existing project. You can take a look at some of our open source projects, as we have many and are always very welcoming to all collaborators. Then take a look at the README and contributing guidelines. These can give you guidance on what is expected from a pull request in order for it to be merged back. See the open issues to see if there's anything you can do. We recommend finding something that's quick and simple to fix, particularly if it's the first time you're contributing to a project. Make an account for the service provided or sign in if you have one already. Fork the repository. This is done by clicking the fork button while signed in on the repository you're interested in contributing to. You'll know it's yours as you'll have your account name in the URL and at the top of the page. Make changes. This can be done in the browser or on your local computer. In the browser, you can edit and upload files directly in the browser. Edit the files by clicking on the file name and then the edit button. It will open a new page where you can edit it directly, preview the changes, and leave a commit message. If you're uploading many files, you can use the upload button and drag and drop the new files you're uploading. You'll need to add a message for what changes you're making in the bottom of the page. We recommend for the commit message that it's something understandable so that it's easy for the maintainers to see what the point of the changes you're making are. On your local computer, clone your repository, make the changes locally, commit to the repository, push back to the server. If you're working on a GitHub project, but if you wish to work on it locally, we recommend using the desktop app as it's quite intuitive and open source too. Make a pull request. Follow any templates or guidelines that's in the repository. Give it a name that is understandable and add a small, succinct description of the fixes or changes that you've made. You can reference any issue by putting in the issue number, and it will automatically link it to the relevant issue for context. You may need to iterate based on auto-generated tests, if they have any, or feedback given by the original repository maintainers. Now, hopefully it will be merged by the repository maintainers and you will have officially contributed to open source. An important note. One thing that is very important to note is that there are many people that work on great open source projects, but have to limit the amount of hours that they work on them in order to find other methods of making a living. One of the ways that they do this is by setting up things like feature, bug bounties, tip jars, and other ways to sustainably support their open source work, like sponsorships and Patreon. If you find that there are open source projects that you use a lot or that you feel provide great value to you, do consider contributing to them monetarily when you can. You never know. If enough people pitch in, they may be able to work on it full time or bring in a larger team to help them with things like new features, bug fixes, and improvements that can be available and released much more often, which means that you and the rest of the world will be better off for it. Speaking of supporting great people doing work in open source, you can like this video if you did, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your post notifications if you wish to be notified for any new uploads. If you would like, Follow us on our social media accounts, and if you wish to support us monetarily, you can do that via our website diaryofresearch.com/donate, or via Patreon. Patreon is a platform that allows you to support content creators in a very sustainable way. There are various different tiers that you can sign up for and get perks such as Patreon-only posts, early access to content, and more. And in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.